so much for joining me on Being Indispensable. My name's Liz Van Vliet. We're all dispensable. I know that better than anyone. I'm a breast cancer survivor. But that doesn't mean that we can't invest in ourselves to improve the skills and capabilities that are going to help us stand out and be perceived as indispensable. Being indispensable is also about the being side of the equation. Because if we're not looking after ourselves and our own well-being, then we have no hope of showing up as indispensable in the workplace. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome to episode 104 of Being Indispensable. This week, I want to talk to you about respect. And the reason I've chosen that topic for today's episode is because it's something that I have heard come up in a lot of conversations I've had with executive assistants, this feeling that you're not respected in your role. And I was interested to see recently on LinkedIn a survey that actually asked executive assistants to rank or to, it was a little poll. Jeremy Burrows did it. And it was a poll asking assistants to click on the issue that they most relate to. And it was really interesting that respect was the one that ranked the highest in terms of an issue that these people were saying they could relate to. They felt that they were not respected. And that was really interesting to me. I am a strong believer that respect is earned. You can't demand respect. Respect is something that is earned. Now, that being said, this is obviously an issue. I wanted to share with you my thinking around how you can go about putting the pieces in place or reflect on whether you do have the structures in place that are going to help you build respect. So I wanted to share some ideas with you and also share with you some resources. As always, I want to give you some things that you can take away. The first thing I want to say is that I think there are three areas, broadly speaking, when we're thinking of building our sense of respect, we can put them into three areas. And the first one is self-respect. Because it does start with your own way of thinking about yourself and being kind to yourself, in words that you will be familiar if you've listened to me for a long time. I'm a big fan of us being kind to ourselves because we can be our own worst enemy. So doing things that are going to build your own self-respect is the first thing. The second thing is having respect for yourself in terms of the role that you're performing as a professional role. And that's really tricky sometimes when we're surrounded by messages that actually suggest that being an executive assistant is a clerical administrative role. In fact, being an office professional is a clerical and administrative role, and that the word professional is not warranted. And obviously, you know that I don't subscribe to that view. So respecting the legitimacy and the value of the role that you're performing is the second thing that I want to highlight today. And then thirdly, I want to talk about the fact that respecting others is the way that you can give it to get it, to coin a phrase that I've been reading in doing some research this episode. So if we have respect for others and we demonstrate that through our behaviour and interactions with others, we're more likely to be respected in return or to gain respect in return. So treating people the way we want to be treated is always a good foundation. In my Knowing Assistant framework, which is made up of 5 elements, the first one is know yourself. And the reason I believe that is so important is because in terms of us building and maintaining our sense of ourself and self-respect, really getting to grips with what your strengths are and where you are actually able to add value in your role is a key part of developing positive self-respect. So knowing your strengths, knowing the value that you bring to your role, what makes you you. So if you haven't done any work on that, that's something that I would recommend to you. So I just recently, a little while ago, did an episode on conducting a personal SWOT assessment, because understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and your threats as they apply to you personally is one way of colouring in this view of yourself, this knowing yourself side of things. Then in terms of the second point that I made about respect for the legitimacy and the value of the role that you're performing, that's where the other parts of my Knowing Assistant framework apply to that, because they are knowing your job, so being competent and capable in terms of the aspects of your job that are, vital to you showing up as a linchpin assistant. Then knowing your power skills, developing the power skills. I call them power skills, but other people, we're used to calling them soft skills. Knowing what the power skills are, the influencing skills, the communication skills, all of the things that are going to be able to help people see you the way you want to be seen is vital to you being able to present yourself as a professional. Then knowing your manager and knowing your organisation, those are the other elements of the Knowing Assistant model. And the reason why they're so important for building and maintaining respect is because, again, they are all things that add to your professionalism. Knowing the strategic objectives, knowing the issues that are confronting your manager, what's going on, and I describe it in an episode a long time ago in the podcast as being a look behind the margarine sort of assistant, which by that I meant not just taking things at face value. So building and maintaining respect and having others see you as a valued and relied upon member of the organisation comes from you really being able to demonstrate that you are not just doing things reactively and being an order taker, that you're actually considering what are the reasons, what's the why behind the things that I'm being asked to do, the activities that I'm working on, the different objectives that my manager is focused on, and really actually being curious and interested in those things is going to really help to underpin the respect that you're able to command. And then finally, in terms of respect for your profession, I really want you to see that so many of my listeners are actively engaged in the executive assistant community, professional networks and organisations that are all about really advancing the role of the executive assistant or the admin assistant or personal assistant, depending on where you are in the world, but really actually taking some ownership for that in whatever way you are capable of doing, so that you can really take some responsibility for advancing the profession and helping others see the role as a professional undertaking. I also wanted to share with you some resources that speak to this topic of respect. And one of them is actually written by somebody who I have an enormous amount of respect 4. Interesting, that's the way I've articulated it. And her book is all about respect. And that is a lady called Peggy Vasquez. And if you've ever been to any Executive Secretary Live events, you'll know Peggy because she's often speaking at Lucy Brazier's events. And she came out to Australia a couple of years ago, and I picked up a copy of her book, Not Just an Admin. The subtitle of the book is Discover the Respect, Value and Power of the Administrative Profession. So I'd recommend Peggy's book. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But Peggy is a great advocate herself for the profession of the administrative profession, but she's also written a brilliant book that really speaks to the heart of these areas of the ways that you can build and earn respect. And then the second resource that I want to mention to you is something I've also mentioned previously in the podcast, and it's a great book for, it's a great book to just have on your bookshelf and dip into. It's called Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office: Unconscious Mistakes Women Make That Sabotage Their Careers. It's an oldie but a goodie, a book by a lady called Lois P. Frankel. So I will put the links to both of those in the show notes. So I hope this episode's been helpful in helping shed a little bit of light on some of the strategies that you can use to think about that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see the show notes, head over to my website. It would be great if you haven't already done so. If you enjoyed the show, if you could kindly go to iTunes and leave a review. It helps other people find the show. Thanks for listening and have a great week.